Welcome back, everybody, to the InDepth podcast. I'm here with Christian.
What's up?
We're going to jump into it again. Go a little quick, get them started fast. We can shorten these times because they are long.
Yeah, cool.
Today's prompt is the fear of man. It's a fun topic, very fun topic, and something that I'm sure we all struggle with. I know I struggle with this, and I know you struggle with this. It's kind of just like
it's a world thing.
Yeah,
everyone struggles with it.
But yeah, we're gonna jump straight into it. The first question is just like, what areas of your life have you struggled with the fear of man?
Yeah. So I think the fear of man is more of like a biblical definition, because it's more biblical to say. I feel like the fear of man could even be described as disapproval or looking how you look like for other people. And going off of fear of man, I think some of the areas where I struggle with this is in the area of sharing my faith or acknowledging that I'm a Christian. Even I know a lot of times I can, at work or whatever, kind of sit in the back as people are having conversations, as people are doing stuff. And until recently, it took a hot second for me to get to the point where it's like if someone's like, "Oh, what are you doing Sundays?" or whatever, I'd be like, "No, I'm going to church." Or some people say "Oh, you're religious," and yeah, getting to that point of being I'm confident in who I am in Christ. And then other areas of just career, just other areas. There's areas where I compare or look at other people and look for their approval, look for someone's being good job kind of thing, and not being confident in areas where no, this is where God has me, this is where I'm moving, and so on.
Yeah. I definitely say for me, it's mainly the same in work and outreach. I struggled a lot with work. It was kind of took me a minute to get to the point where everyone knew I was religious and stuff like that, and they kind of got the hint throughout time. But it was always hard for me to just be I'm a Christian or whatever. And it definitely I think they definitely people notice when you don't do certain things that they do. They're like, something's different about this guy. Whatever it is, they have something different. They're not doing XYZ that I'm doing. So what's up with this person? So they pay attention, a little bit more attention, and then they put it together. Okay, so this person has some kind of religion. Even with me, at work recently, I had my one boss. He was just talking about something. And he's like, "You're religious. What does your religion say about this?" And it caught me a little off guard because wait, interesting.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to know even though I wasn't oh, I'm religious, guys. Respect me in this way or whatever. This is what I say, and they picked up oh, he's religious. Interesting. And it wasn't they were taken back by it or they didn't like me because of it, which was always a fear for me. It was all right, because I tell them I'm a Christian or I'm religious, what will they think of me now?
Yeah.
Will they think I'm looking down on them or whatever, or and all these different thoughts would go in my head, and it's just but that my boss saying that to me, it was kind of oh, it's normal, not normal, but it's they aren't thinking differently of me. They're okay, this guy is it's just another walk of life, and for them it's just it's just normal, I guess, because it was I really don't know. It was interesting though, because it caught me off guard a lot because I didn't really know they knew how religious I was.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's one way, work, but then also being evangelistic. Evangelical? No,
that's
different. Yeah, that's
that's oh my goodness. Being evangelical is Protestant, all that stuff. It's a different sector. I forget what they're called.
I said it. I was that's not right. No, but being evangelistic.
Yeah.
Just kind of going out in everyday life, and even work, just inviting people to church, or inviting people it's getting Christmas season now, inviting them to church on Christmas service or a Christmas concert or whatever you got, because now is the time where people are more open to going places, because it's kind of just oh, Christmas carols, and a lot of Christmas carols are worship songs.
Yeah, which not many people
not people
even notice.
Yeah, they don't really notice it, but they sing it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a thing. Like it's easier to get people, like not get people, but like ask people to come now because they're more willing to say yes. But then even like that, it's just like kind of being more open, and somewhere I've struggled a lot in being open to be like yeah, like you want to come to my church, or do you like where you stand on this stuff, like, and like kind of just being more open like that has been a hard thing for me, and it's still a struggle at times, but thankfully it's been getting a lot better.
Are you saying like asking people?
Asking people.
Oh, asking people.
Yeah,
Okay.
asking people to like come to church, or asking people specific things about religion or whatever.
Yeah.
That has been harder for me to do because of the fear of man, because I don't know how people will react and interact with me then. Like, will they think of me differently? Will they like have a little bit of anger towards me or hate towards me? Oh, because something happened in their life and they blame it on like a faith or whatever. So I never know.
Yeah.
So it was always a problem. And like more recently I've been able to be like, all right, like it doesn't matter. Like whatever happens, God's got in control, and that's okay. One verse that's helped me, I said in the past podcast, which actually came out today, which today is December 1st.
Yes.
Um,
It came out.
Came out.
It's I forget what it's called. I'll pull it up right now.
Am I good enough?
Am I good enough? Yeah. With Mikey Roman.
Yeah. But like, so the one I've said this verse, and I thought it was, I think, Romans, whatever, but it's actually Matthew 10:28. It's one that I memorized. It's and do not fear those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And that's basically just like, for me, it's like, I don't fear those people. Don't fear man, because whatever happens, God's got in control. God's over them. And that's something that's kind of helped me in my life to be like, all right, like, don't need to worry about what people think of me as much. Obviously, yes, be aware of that, but don't obsess over that. But don't have to be like too like obsessed with that and being like, oh, like these people are gonna hate me with this. Like, no, God's got it. Whatever happens was part of God's plan, and I'm okay with that. And be okay with that is something like, that's kind of like where my mindset, and that's something that's helped me, like a verse that's helped me a little bit, and kind of have that mindset of like, oh, God's got this. Don't really need to worry about what they think too much, because God is the most important thing for me and should be my priority. And then it should become them, like after God.
Yeah.
So that's been something that's helped me. Has
Nice.
anything helped you in these trials?
Yeah, I think I was about to jut in actually before you opened that question, because I had something I want to say. I think for me, something that's really helped is finding confidence in who you are in Christ, and not worrying, and get to the point of not worrying so much. But one of the things that's helped me get to that point is kind of revealing. Okay, so there's a little bit of a backstory to this. Like, I was with a pastor and we were talking about an area of sin that I was like, man, like I just feel like this is like kind of binding me. And one of the words he said that I still repeat now is Satan has a hold of you in this spot. I'm trying to remember the exact words how he said it, but how it is in my mind is like Satan has kind of like tricked you, kind of giving you hold of that. And once you reveal the lies, it's easier to get away from it. So being like, so in my prayer, be like, God, like I'm feeling tempted this way. Like Satan has grabbed a hold of me in this way. Please help me release me from this. So like, I kind of have that same mentality of like Satan is telling me like, hey, like these people are going to hate you, or like people are going to look at you weird, or you're going to be an outcast or whatever that. And I've been able to like look at the lies and be like, no, like this is just Satan, what Satan's telling me. And he's trying to like make me believe. And I can fight through it then, knowing that like, that's not God telling me no. It's like Satan like saying like, hey, this is going to be a really bad thing, a really painful thing. But in reality, it's just Satan has gotten a hold of that area of my life, and I need to realize that, understand it, and then break away from it and be like, no, like God has given me grace, and I can walk in this step knowing that God is walking with me in that step. I think that's one of the bigger things that, because like just recently, and it's kind of funny, but like it's like all truth. Like I just recently invited my first person, and like I'm 24, so like I've had all those years. Just recently invited my first person to church, like successfully, not successfully, but just like, hey, like,
Do you want to come?
do you want to come?
Yeah.
And it was more just like it was a guy at my old work, and he has a daughter, and there's like this I forget what it was called. It was it was like the fair day we had at church or whatever. It was,
Yeah.
I forget, the barbecue.
Yeah.
And I invited him, and if he didn't have anything, he would have came. But like, I never have ever really done that. It took a lot, but then it felt so good though in the end, because I was like Satan didn't have that power of me, and I was able to reach out, and like I've been able to have conversations a little bit more with him. And I don't work at the job anymore, but we still once in a while talk, and I've been able to reach out again. Like recently, I just reached out again, like, hey, I'm doing this. Like, do you want to grab coffee? It never worked out yet, but just like, I think for me, the biggest thing is just revealing the area where Satan has a grip on you, and actually truly seeing like, okay, that is a spot where there's lies and there's not truth coming out of that. And then revealing that to yourself. Because I think the biggest thing for healing is just revealing the areas where you are stuck, you're weak, whatever it is. And then filling that in with someone, Jesus, someone that, and something that can kind of like fill that hole and like let it grow. That's one of the spots.
Yeah, something that going along with that is like something I've like felt is as soon as you ask someone to go to church, it's so rewarding whether they say yes or no. At least for me, like, and like they're not necessarily gonna just say like no, I don't want to. There are those people, and that's fine, and that's just like that's okay.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that will just be like, oh, like, sure, I'll try to find some time, and sometime in the future I'll do that.
Well, I think the biggest thing, John, real quick.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that one of the biggest thing that Satan says to us is like, oh, they'll look at you different. But really, in reality, like some people will be like all up in arms, all upset. But like the majority of the time, people are open and receptive to it, even if they don't come.
Yeah.
They'll like listen and they'll hear. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that have to, like, with the fear man, is something that you have to overcome, is like, no, like they're not, they might, but it will most likely, about like 98% of the time, will not change their view
Yeah.
on how they look at you. Continue what you're saying, but I just want to say that.
Yeah, no. What I think it is like, I don't know. I feel like we build up stress because you stress about what you're gonna say. You're like, oh, well, I say this correctly. What am I gonna say to him? And then you just kind of build the stress, and you keep going, and keep going, and keep going. And as soon as you say it and you invite them, it's like, oh, like that's all I had to do. All I had to do is, hey, what are you doing this Sunday? They're like, oh, I'm doing this. They're like, okay, well, hey, I just wanted to invite you to my church. We have Sundays this time. If you want to come, I'd love you to come. And just let me know if you want to come, and I'll make a point to like be with you.
Yeah.
And then that's it. That's all you have to do. And no, it's not. You don't have to do that exact way. There's different ways to do it. But it's so simple, and all you have to say, and I feel like you build up so much stress, and then you're like, oh, like that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I think that's a lot of things. Like Satan will use that. He'll be like, sorry.
Judah's feeling a little under the weather today, so
this is gross.
he's gonna. Do we need to take an ad break? We don't even have any ads, but I'll throw something in there.
All right, I'm gonna keep going with this.
All right, cool. Keep going with it. It's not at all.
Kind of lost the train of thought.
Oh man, you were talking about. I wish I remembered too. Oh, you're talking about building up stress. How you build up your own stress.
Yeah,
I'll say something off of that.
ahead.
I'll say something about that. I forget what verse it is and where it's at, but I'm pretty sure it's Paul writing to a church about saying like God will give you the words to speak in the moment. I think that is almost more wow. Because that's gonna sound so gross on it. Oh my goodness.
I moved away, but
that's. Anyways, we're gonna ignore that. Like he was saying, like how God's gonna give you the words, and how.
I'm so sorry, bro. Let me just like give me a hot minute.
give him a hot minute. Okay, we're gonna. Maybe I'll just cut to the camera as you're doing this. Wow.
Wasn't even that bad.
ASMR right now. They're like, hey guys, how's it going? We're gonna ASMR it up. Anyways, and like the confidence that brings, as you don't have to rehearse. Like it's good to like think about like, oh, I don't want to like offend this person, especially if they're like in a different culture. Like it's good to rehearse like, how do I interact with them? But I think there's also confidence. I really want to figure out that verses. I don't. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes. But it's just in that confidence of knowing that we don't have to rehearse everything. We don't have to have the right words. If we walk in faith, and I think the gratification of how good it feels, you're kind of saying at the end of before you snotted it up, the gratification of how good it feels to walk in the steps that God has. I think it's, again, walking in how God has asked you and feeling God's pleasure in that moment.
Yeah.
About not like he's like, oh, he didn't do it, so like I'm really mad at him. But like there's a certain amount of pleasure that we can feel with God when we walk in steps that are in line with him that you don't get by doing it for your own selfish gain kind of thing. So again, like encouragement, just like if you're reaching out to someone or if you are taking that step to think about what you want to say and like map it out, but don't like stress about like, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? But like pray like, God, give me the words. I think that's where prayer comes into this, is like, give me the words to speak right and true to this person in things that are gonna glorify you and lead them to you. Did that help you find your spot?
No, not at all. I honestly just don't. I don't remember where I was going with it, and I don't remember what was gonna happen next.
Well, you're saying
I was saying something. All right, I'll just like kind of.
how good it feels.
It feels, yeah. I guess it just feels good when you get to the point where you're like you come up to the person and again, like you build the stress, like, oh, how is this person gonna think of me? What am I gonna say? And then at the end, you're like, oh, this wasn't that bad. And then like the majority, like not the majority of the time, but a lot of times, people will be relatively open to it.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I think it's just like, yeah, like you were saying earlier, not giving the devil or Satan the ability to just like hold on to something and be like, no, like I'm gonna do this. This is, you are not gonna control me in this area of my life. I'm gonna take that step of faith and just put myself out there. I don't know. I think it's hard to do, but as soon as you do it, it makes it so much easier next time, and the next time would be even easier, and the next time would be even easier, and it just continually gets easier and easier. So I think that's generally where I was just gonna go with that.
Yeah. I like it.
Next thing is just like I want like give some like representation of people in the Bible,
Who did it well.
who did it well and
who
who failed it,
who
but
failed.
still had grace.
Yes. The emphasis on
the grace.
God has still worked
Yes.
through them, even though
Um,
there wasn't a immediate success.
Correct.
Yes.
The first person, and this is someone that, we'll just say failed. It's failed is such like
We'll say it.
hard word, and it sounds so like, I don't know, like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like what we mean by that. It's just like, I don't know what other word necessarily to use right off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think of one, but I don't.
All right, we'll just say
We'll say
failed
failed,
for now,
yes.
but they were given a second chance or given another chance.
Through the grace of God.
Through the grace of God.
Emphasis.
So the first one I have is Peter. Jesus' disciple. Jesus had just been captured, and Jesus, like early in the night, Jesus said, "Oh, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows."
He was like, nah.
And he's like, "Nah, I got
Nah,
you,
bro, I got your
Like,
back."
I ain't gonna do that."
Yeah.
And then comes Jesus. Then is captured, or is arrested, and then Peter follows him from a distance. Is like kind of like trying to like feel out the situation. Like, oh, like he can see people, and 3 times these 3 different people came up to him. They're like, "Oh, aren't you Jesus' disciple?" And he's like, "Nah, I don't know the guy. Like I'm just walking by. Like
Yeah.
I don't know the guy."
I'm just cold. I need some fire. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he just did it again.
Yeah.
And then he's like, nah, and then did it again. He's like, nah. And then the rooster crowed. And he's like, oh, crap. Like, what did I just do? Like, I just screwed up. Like,
Yeah.
I told Jesus I wouldn't, and then I did. But, like, so, like, that's the way someone failed. But with the grace of God, he was given another chance. And Peter became one of the leading leaders in the early church. He was constantly traveling, sharing the gospel. He was a leader, like just a leader, like people like looked up to him, and he had a lot of wisdom. So even though that was his low,
Yeah.
God brought him to a high.
Yeah.
And God was able to use him to further his kingdom.
Yeah. I really like on those kind of verses. I think that's why I'm going to say The Chosen. I love watching. Okay. Just like random plug for Chosen. I really love The Chosen. But I love seeing the lows that people get, and then seeing
high.
and even like I'm kind of like getting a little emotional. Like I love seeing how much of a father God is. In that you can almost see like when Peter came to God and like apologized, like God was like smiling and happy because he's like, you came back to me. And yeah, I just love just an emphasis and just like God, his heart is to shape and correct and mold. He's not here to punish and hurt and just be mean. So like in that moment of Peter's lowest of being like, nah, I'm not going to do it, and then does it, just in the same in our life where we do the same thing, we can look at the stories and be like, no, like God had a great thing for Peter then, and he grew Peter in that moment, and his love and his care and his grace in that moment was made new in him.
And like in these times, like the reason we go through trials is like once we can get closer to God, but two, so we have experience now in that area, and like because like even though he failed in that area, like he had like knowledge now of like, okay, I know what to do now in this situation, and I can help other people out with the knowledge I have.
You don't know how many people he maybe mentored in that area of like, I feel so like discouraged, like I didn't stand up to the priest or whatever like that, and he's like, it's all right. Next time you got
I denied Jesus.
Like I literally denied
our
like
Savior
God three times to his face, and I still had grace. Like why are you like? Don't even weep anymore. Like get back out there, kind of thing. And it's just like I just love that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Another one I wanted to touch on for like a way someone like failed but God had grace on him was Moses. In Egypt, like God was like, "Oh, do this," and he was like, "I'm not the right person for this."
Yeah.
Like maybe you should
made
pick,
a bunch of
maybe you should pick
excuses.
like my brother or something like
Yeah.
that. Like someone maybe a little bit more holier than I am.
Yeah.
And you just and
Like, I'm scared of
and God was
speaking
like,
in front
"No,
of people,
no,
yeah.
it's you." And then like he kept like making excuses like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not good enough for this," or "I'm not the right person," because he had like he didn't want to do it. And God was continuing like, "No, like you're the one I've chosen. I want you to do it." And like, and even though he denied, like he didn't want to like go to Egypt and like liberate God's people, God was persistent with him, and then also still allowed him, even though he said he didn't want to and continued to say no. God still had him lead the Israelites out of Egypt and then in the wilderness. Like he led them in that time. So it's like that's another thing, which is like even though the person was like, nah, I don't want to do this, or no, I don't know this person, or God was still like, no, I want you to do this. Like, I have chosen you. So it's like, you're the one I picked.
I think there's so many of those like instances, like pretty much anything you're going through, you can go in the Bible and like look at people who have either done it good or bad. And it's just really encouraging. Like if you're struggling in this area of just like fear, man, and anything, doesn't have to be sharing your faith or anything, like go to the Bible and like look at people in the Bible who either have failed miserably, or have succeeded so well, and you can just kind of like look at their pattern and be like, look at their life and be like, wow, like I can learn from this, I can grow from these people.
Yeah,
that's why I like reading the Bible and having the Bible there is so important, because we get to learn from other people's mistakes, but also learn about our God better, and the grace and the love and the kindness he has. And
now I'm going to do two more real quick of people that were fearless. So the first one is David. David with Goliath. Everyone feared Goliath. Goliath was a giant. He was, what was he, like 9 feet tall or something like that?
9, 10, something like that.
Something like that. He was tall, taller than the average person. So he was intimidating.
The average person is like 5'10".
5'10".
5'10",
I think is the average.
He's double.
So he's like double the size
person.
of your average person. And I don't know what the height was back then in like where Jesus grew up in the Middle East.
I have no idea what the average was.
I don't know.
Do you think they even have like a statistic for the average?
Maybe
the average Israelite, whatever that like average like. I don't even know what.
It's a good question. I don't know. We get start.
Anyways,
but David wasn't a very old guy, so he was younger. Wasn't he 18? I believe he's a teen.
Something like that. He's
not like
young.
He's not
20s.
huge. Like he's small.
I mean,
So Goliath is
fighting those
definitely like 2
lions and
times his
slinging those
size.
rocks, you know.
Yeah,
Swole.
Goliath is definitely 2 times David's size, or close to 2 times
Yeah,
David's
sure.
size. And like everyone was fearful of Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone, the king, all the Israelites, just because of how big he was.
Yeah.
And he looked intimidating. And David, this short kid that was a shepherd, went up and just
Stone slinging
one
shepherd.
stone hit him in the center of the head and fell over, and everyone was like, "Holy crap, that's all it took."
Yeah.
Like, wow. And he was just like, and like, so with that, like everyone was so fearful of Goliath, which is the man, and David had the faith in God that God would use that stone
That's probably like
to
this big.
yeah, which isn't very big, to defeat someone that had put so much fear onto God's people. So that's one area of like someone that like in the Bible that did that, and then another one is David, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Daniel.
Sorry, did I say David?
You said David.
Wow.
Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and
Yeah.
Abednego. Daniel is my favorite book in the Bible.
Oh, yeah?
Just because of the stories.
Which is
and there's,
interesting.
like-
I'm kind of curious, and this is a side tangent for a second. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were, and I don't know if there's everything, like they were thrown into the fire.
yes.
Daniel wasn't.
No.
I know Daniel did not. They would have, if Daniel had fallen, they would have said something about it. Do you know where Daniel was?
I have no idea where Daniel was.
Because that's in the same
doesn't say.
place, unless he was in a totally different region at that time.
Which he might have been.
Maybe. I'm just really curious.
Yeah.
Just because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the 3 guys that just got thrown in, and you're like, well, I thought Daniel was there too, somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the dead center where it's like.
And then Daniel just shows up later on. You're like, oh, hey.
And Daniel's in the lines, then you're like,
He's
what?
like, sorry, I was on vacation. In the lion's den. How'd you guys do?
hey.
Just-
but no, that was a lot. That was a
just
long time
side
after they
thing,
were
yeah.
thrown in the fire. But yeah, just like, all right, we'll go with those 2 instances. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. They, whatever they did, and pretty much the whole book of Daniel is a lot of like, it's just them basically standing up to the world. Is them constantly being like, nah, like my God has control of this. You can say whatever you want, and you can do whatever you want to me, but I know God has control of the situation. And through those multiple times, God was just kept them safe, like the fire. The guys that threw him into the fire burned on top of the like they threw him in and they died because of the fire of the heat.
Yeah.
But then you see Daniel, or not Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego,
Yeah.
and a fourth,
Fourth, yeah.
which
Not Daniel.
not Daniel,
An angel.
is an angel, and it's like, it's not like
Imagine
they're just
being that.
walking
Oh my
around, and they're
goodness.
not and like you in the chapter it says the king's like, did I not throw 3 men in there bound? And he's like, yeah, you did that. It's like, why do I see 4 men unbound? And then so he called them out, and they came out, and there's only 3 of them again, but they were unbound. And then he worshipped God.
Yeah.
And then also with David, like
Daniel.
sorry, oh my word, bro. Daniel.
I got you. Don't worry.
My favorite book.
Fact
I
check,
can't remember the
fact
guy's
check.
name. Daniel was thrown into
Lion's den.
the lion's den because of his faith.
Yeah.
Because he would not fall down and worship the statue of the king. And the king didn't even really want to do it, but because he had signed something, he still had to do it.
Was it a statue or was it praying
He
to
was
him?
praying to him.
Yeah.
Which I think there was like an idol in the center of this town.
Yes.
Of him.
Probably.
So then Daniel was thrown in there, but he had the faith that God would sustain him. And the lions' mouths were shut, and they did not attack him and kill him.
Yeah.
So like those 2.
I also have another one.
Oh,
A quick
okay,
one.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite books is well, it's actually not even a book.
Is it David?
No, it's just David. It's not even a book. It's the I think now I'm questioning which book it is. I think
Who's
it's
it?
Genesis. It's Joseph. That's Genesis, right? Or Exodus? No, it's Genesis
No, it's
because Exodus
Genesis.
is no.
Exodus. Yeah, it's Genesis.
Man, now
Genesis.
I'm on the spot now.
think
It's
it's
Genesis. It's Genesis. I love in the same way of what you're saying. It's like Joseph went through a lot, and he trusted God throughout the whole thing. And it wasn't really standing up to somebody, but it was more mistreatment. And he could have been like, he could have fallen many times.
Like, woe is me.
Yeah, like woe is me, like I this, or like just being like, oh yeah, like whatever kind of thing. But like in that moment, like he trusted God.
Yeah.
And this is more on the side of like trusting God and having, and like, he has protection, because like he then raised him up and became a great leader. But in those moments of trials of being misrepresented, and even just abused in areas that he then, God like excelled his standing. Side note. Continue.
Sorry.
Yawning.
So next thing is just like going back to like with the guys who failed, but God had grace. God has that same grace on us, and I think we have to keep in mind that that's what's true. Like he has that faith, or sorry, not the faith. He has that grace, and all we have to do is have the faith. Like I have written down is like even though we may fail in trials of the fear of man, God never says that He is done with us. He tells us to get back up and try again, and that's something I like want to keep in my mind. And would encourage you to keep your mind, and everyone listening, whoever's listening, I don't know who it is, to keep your mind is like, is like you fail. I've said this in the past, but like, if you fail, like get up and do it again. Like round 2. I think I said in the last podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's coming out, but last podcast, it was like, when you fail, just get up and do round 2. You fail again, round 3. Fail again, round 4. Continue. Like God isn't like, oh, you failed? Nah, let's try someone new. He's like, no, try again. I want you to try again. Continue. You fail, just continue to try. That's all. Like that's all He's asking us to do, and like that's the grace He's giving us, and like He will sustain us. And like I don't know, it's just like keeping that in mind that if you fail, don't be like I guess like woe is me. Like I suck. Like my life sucks. Like no, like try it again. God's got you. Like try it again. I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it just comes down to, and you can even like going back to the Bible, like studying God's grace and God's mercy, and just like it's something that like I don't even understand completely, but just like how God can just have grace on grace, and even though we are frail and like we fail, He still has grace. I think just remembering that, and all God wants is your heart and your best efforts and your willingness to go where He's leading and go where He's calling. And it just comes with just, you're going to be failing and you're going to mess up, but don't let that stop you, because that's just also another lie with the reveal of Satan, who's just like, yeah, like you failed, like God's not going to want you again. Like, why don't you just give up? And I think it's just, wow, God's just has to Satan has to be revealed in that spot for God to come in and like redeem that whole spot. So just, yeah, I mean, I like it. They're just grace. I think that's kind of where it comes down to. There's grace to mess up, and God wants you to take the steps all the time to keep doing what He's asking.
Keep pushing forward.
Yeah, keep pushing forward.
Yeah. All right, this is to wrap it up. I got 2 verses on the fear of man and like trusting God. Cool. First one is Hebrews 13:6. It says, so we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? And then the second one is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. I think those are both really good. Just to be like God's got you. Like, don't worry about anything else. God's got you.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to, again, like finding scripture that encourages you in the times of fear, that you can refocus instead of what Satan's telling you, refocus on what God's telling you.
Yeah.
So just, I'd almost say like encourage you guys, the listeners, and even for us, just like finding areas where we might be tempted to give into what Satan is saying and find verses that help combat that. And then move forward with confidence. Yeah.
All right.
Sweet. Sounds good. You want to end us out?
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching or listening, whichever one you're on. Both of them. Thank you for doing that. I hope you guys learned something new with us and had just a good time listening to us talk and just learn ourselves from other experiences and from each other and just from, honestly, like Bible too. Just people's lives. So, thanks for watching or listening.
And let's say, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this time with us, please subscribe, comment, leave a like, and we'll see you in the next episode.